I told her, I said, girl, you got to stop looking at performance and start asking yourself, what's your potential? What can you bring to the company? Going beyond the right situation, given what you have, what more can you bring? It's the internal interference. Internal interference of fear of failure, fear of doing something different, fear of speaking up, fear of how I'm being perceived or seen.
I always encourage, especially all employees, to look for advocates, people who can speak up for them, right? Not just their managers. Because, as a manager, if I have a good employee, I would want to keep her.
And I told her, girl, I said, I didn't buy you a Nike shoe for nothing. Just do it.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the A to Z podcast where we turn real talk to real change. I'm Elton, and today I have a special two guests with me, Shireen and also Cheryl.
Hi.
And if you recognize them from somewhere, they have been on the Empat Seribu podcast. So do check them out where they talk about motherhood and career and everything. So today I invited them on because I want to understand how can we actually be more successful in the workplace or improve our performance, because the common thing I hear among my, let's say, peers is, hey, my boss say I'm not performing, and the kind of, how do I get increment at work? Performance evaluation is coming up, performance appraisals. So today's topic is really about how do you unleash your potential for your success. And I only have like 4 months of corporate experience, so probably not the best person to talk about it. I kind of want to understand in a corporate terms or corporate sense, what does it mean by performance in the workplace? What does it mean when people bring up that term? I think Sherry, do you mind you start first, then we'll move on to Cheryl.
Wow, okay. So that's a huge, I would say, topic to talk about, right? Performance. And, when I was in HR, this is also a very common topic that we circle around. Whether it's at the hiring stage, when you're hiring a new person, you also look at, can this person perform, right, within the culture of the organization? And then, when you're developing talent, you're also looking at not just the potential, but also the performance of the person. And, when you reach a certain career path, certain ladder rung in the organization, there's also different expectations of performance there. So I would say, when I used to use this term when I was in HR last time, when you're a GM, you only have one performing factor, right? Just do it. Okay. Yeah. So performance can be very subjective depending on the organization, depending on the matrix of the organization as well. And I think today's day and age, people tend to look at performance a little bit differently, especially with the younger generation coming in, the cross-generational workforce, because performance many years ago will look like differently today as well. Right? Today, performance also encompasses whether you have resilience, whether you have good mental health practices, right? Whether you are able not just to communicate, but also to influence, whether you carry yourself well, whether you have executive presence. So, the list is endless if you talk about what is a performance, yeah?
And Cheryl, you're actually from a banking background, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, banking background, but I left more than 20, 25 years ago. But I kind of find what you say a bit interesting because this is a subject that I've been speaking to my eldest girl because she's in corporate. And one of the things I've been actually sharing with her, talking to her about is because she keeps talking about performance. Every year when it comes to performance review, she's like, I'm here, I'm performing. And I told her, I said, girl, you got to stop looking at performance and start asking yourself, what's your potential? What can you bring to the company? Going beyond, given the right situation, given what you have, what more can you bring? And I think these are the three things that come to my mind, which I keep telling her. I said, number one is continue to be curious at work.
Yeah, very important.
Because sometimes, when she's worked in this particular function for 3 years, it becomes a routine. And when it becomes a routine, we are no longer curious because I can manage my stakeholders well. I know how to do my job well. I go in and I come out. The curiosity is no longer there. The learning stops.
Yes.
So I told her, I said, just think about these 3 words. Number one, be curious. Number two, be adaptable. Be adaptable is, I heard this phrase from a client that I was training recently. He talked about two things, tiptoe, hands raised. Tiptoe is being curious, knowing what is out there beyond your job function, asking yourself, what else can I do? So it's about being alert, being aware. And of course, hands raised is, how else can I contribute? Is there something else that sparks your passion and interest? Because if currently what you're doing now seems routine, where is that passion? Maybe it could be in another area, because that's how I moved from corporate into training consultancy.
Yeah.
From banking training consultancy, I was in a sales job. So, I take it.
That was your potential.
That was my potential, and that's something that I want to instill in my children. Look for what is your potential. And so it's a little bit different right now. And when I do training, and that's some of the conversations that I have with the participants as well. Yeah.
Very interesting, because we tend to assess the person first, right? Say, for instance, in a hiring process or even in a promotion process, right? You look at the potential of that person. Yeah. Now, the challenge is, how do you turn that potential into performance? Right. So all of us, have enough hands and legs to be able to swim, right? But we are all not Olympic champions, right? So we all have that potential. But behind that potential, there is this interference that actually impedes you from performing, or that disrupts you from performing. So in Timothy Galway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis, he talks about this concept. And, that's where when I was in HR those days, we were always asked, right, the line managers or managers and leaders, what's impending the potential of this person. Yeah. So it gets very nice and rosy when you're hiring for potential. You see all the possibilities, you see all the curious learning mindset, etc. But then, when it comes to your day-to-day, can they do a pivot table? Can they learn strategy? Can they anticipate customers' questions and needs? And do they work fast enough? That's where the challenge comes in. Right? And performance is...
Just now also when you mentioned something called routine, I think that is also one thing that, especially in corporate, it has been there for so long. You coming in and say, hey, let's try something else, or maybe let's look at a different way, maybe to approach it, which has never been done before. That disrupts, and maybe now they're looking at, now you're no more potential in the company. You are a disruption to our culture, kind of thing. How does that affect someone's perception of you from, maybe, let's say, from a talent to, if you are someone that's constantly, let's say, you're tiptoes, hands raised, right?
Yeah.
In the company.
I think a lot of times it's really not what you do, but I guess it's how you do it. Being curious is something I feel it's a culture a lot of organizations are driving today. I think many years ago, when we used to work with a lot of organizations, we look at values. The values was, the standard values: teamwork,
integrity, communication,
together, work better. But I realized, as I've been working with organizations over the past few years, their value systems now are very different. The values I'm starting to see now is, first one is curiosity. 2, candor. Candor is about, if you see something, you have an idea, bring it up.
Yep.
Don't be afraid. Let's be able to have open and honest conversations, because at the end of the day, it is our intention. Intention is very much about, why are we having this conversation? Why are we bringing this up? And I think that becomes important.
The agility there.
Absolutely. And, pushing boundaries, thinking out of the box. And these are things that a lot of organizations are driving, and I think that's where the tiptoe hands raised, that became a concept that this organization is actually driving, and asking their people to continue to, ask themselves. So I find it to be interesting. You talked a little bit about interference. Actually, Shireen, I just wanted to add a little bit on that, because one of the things that I realized interacting with my children is the interference a lot of times is internal.
Yeah. Yes.
It's the internal interference. Internal interference of, fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear of doing something different. Fear of speaking up. Fear of how I'm being perceived or seen. And And I think that's one of the key
Yes.
interference. A lot of times we always look at interference as organization culture, my boss, environment, process. And I feel a lot of people fail to realize that one of the biggest interference comes from inside. From inside.
Yeah.
And I see that in my children. And a little bit when I do a bit of self-reflection in myself as well, when I had to make that switch from corporate to, should I go out on my own? I realized that was actually one of the things that was inhibiting me. So I feel that internal part is something that I feel managers and bosses need to have these conversations. If not, a lot of times we're managing performance, we're not managing our people or their potential.
I think just now you put up the word curiosity and candor. Previously, we also discussed it's very easy to say, hey, in our company, we want you to be curious, we want you to be very upfront. Don't. I think what's the term is don't I don't say that. But I think most of them, when bosses comes in, then that thing goes out of the window because how they act doesn't show that they appreciate your curiosity and candor, even though they say so. So I think my question here is probably how do you navigate around all this? Let's say you feel like, yes, I'm trying to be curious, I'm trying to be candor and everything, but my boss is not reciprocating.
Yeah.
How would I go about that?
Interesting, because it's I think it goes back to the like what Cheryl said, right? The values of the organization. What do the organization stands for, right? And that normally, gives you the guidelines, right, or boundaries of the behaviors of the people in the organization, right? So, for instance, in Google, is all about curiosity and candor and freedom, right? But when you are in Google, projects are abundant and it's up to you to pick up the projects that you want to work on, right? So there is that freedom there. And a lot of employees say, I don't know what to do because I'm so used to one way of working. But on another hand, in an industry like finance and insurance, you have a lot of SOPs, a lot of red tapes that you have to follow because it's an environment where it is stipulated and regulated. Yeah. So then your bosses will behave differently, right? And bosses in Google will probably encourage a lot of curiosity and candor, whereas in an organization with finance, in finance and in insurance, they may be a little bit more reserved and more risk-based. So you got to understand first, how do you put it on the table? Just like what Cheryl said, right? It's not the what, but the how do you do it?
I think like in Malaysia, we have a certain working culture that is expected of us. What is the current climate of, let's say, organizations or companies in, let's say, we look at Klang Valley, right? What is the average, company looking like?
I must say, if I were to compare to when I was in corporate more than 20 years ago, I think corporate more than 20 years ago was very structured. It was very bureaucratic, very hierarchical. And a lot of very compliant driven. I'm not saying that it's not the same today. It is, but I feel there is a lot more adaptability. People's perception and mindset have changed. And I see it when I interact with the management team. So, to me is, if you feel you're not able to be open with your immediate or reporting boss, there are other people in the organization that you can interact with and speak to. But it's very different. In those days, this is your reporting boss. If you need anything, you have to go to this boss. You cannot go above, neither can you go sideways. It was a no-no. And you get called out for it. Today, it's not true. It's not true. In fact, they are encouraging you, if you cannot reach your immediate line manager, speak to someone. Because right now we are in a very fast-paced moving environment. People want responses fast. And if you can't get it, you are encouraged to look for someone who can give it to you. And I see it in the participants when I train. I see it with the management team when I interact with. And it's really different. I kind of wish I was in corporate today. When I was 30 years ago, I think I may have found my potential in corporate because I wanted to switch into training. But at that point of time, the decision was, no, we don't have the headcount for it. We are doing licensing program. We do not want to have trainers in the organization. And so that's why I had to actually look out to kind of discover my potential and my passion, which I feel it's very different today. Today I feel line managers are encouraging people to use their potential, look at stretch tasks, contribute to projects that can showcase your talent. And people are happy to do that.
I kind of want both of you to weigh in on this. So in our terms, we term it as company politics.
Mm.
Right? If let's say, I understand about the hierarchy thing. Let's say if I can report to her or him, and then I'll go sideways. That person might be saying, hey, you are trying to, undercut me. There's that element of politics there in there. So how can we navigate them? I would like to hear your thoughts.
Wow.
Because we are dealing with humans. On theory, it works because we are looking at efficiency. But when it comes to human, there's emotions and everything involved.
Yeah. Yes, correct. And I think it goes back to that potential performance part as well, because navigating through the ecosystem, I would call it, right? The
Yes.
network and the ecosystem within the organization is also very unique depending on organizations as well. Some organizations, like Cheryl said, are more open, right? Where you can reach out to talk to a mentor or lunch with somebody else outside your outside your function, right? Or department. And how do you navigate around these ecosystems can also determine your success. Yeah, so look for, I would say, look for what you bring to the table, right? Because first and foremost, performance, right? You got to walk the talk and you got to be able to do the work first, right? So one, you got to do the work. Secondly is, I always encourage, especially, all employees to look for advocates, people who can speak up for them, right? Not just their managers, because as a manager, if I have a good employee, I would want to keep her, right? Because this is doing well, I don't have to disrupt my department, etc. But at the same time, I also have to consider this person's ambition and inspiration. And aspiration, actually. So, but then if I have advocates outside my function, somebody else who sees my potential, that can also leverage and speak for me, right? Whether speaking for me to HR, to the talent team, to whoever, and can give me a different perspective. So I find this concept of finding an advocate or a big brother or taiko in your organization to grow your career is something many people overlook.
Okay.
To me, I always believe it always goes back to the intention. Now, if my intention is not to bypass my boss, because I feel my boss is not very accommodating, my boss is not very open, he's not very approachable. My boss gives me the standard answer of no, cannot, or follow the guidelines. So if that's my intention to bypass the boss, it will show. And yet nobody likes to be bypassed, So that's human nature. But if the intention is, how are we going to get the best outcome or result, either for the client or the organization, then, I would keep my boss in the loop as I speak to the person, update my boss. And I think that's what people actually want. As long as I've been kept in the loop, as long as that acknowledgement that I'm the boss, that that is there, I feel people will be a little bit more open to it. And I find that it works, and I've done it before. And sometimes working with clients, you work with client A, nothing can get moving. If you send messages, it's not coming in, and you're trying to get a decision. Is it running? Is it not running? What am I going to do? And we need to go to the boss. And we can't wait. So it's really about drafting a diplomatically really nice email with the intention of we want to make sure that we're able to deliver the outcome that you want. The lead time is required, and I understand you're busy. I reached out to so and so. Let me follow up, keep you in the loop. And it worked fine. Yeah.
I think one major word that I've learned right now is managing expectations.
Yes.
And that word comes up a lot. So especially when you first start, you're a fresh graduate, you want to chong, everything is, I can do, you are not good, this is my way, I want to do it.
You want to change the world.
You want to change the world, yes. I remember, I was
so
there
ambitious.
before.
Yes.
But then, now it's a lot of, hey, how do I manage expectations with my clients, with my stakeholders, that kind of thing. If let's say you have a boss, like you just now you mentioned, it's not they want to bypass you, I'll keep you in the loop, manage your expectations. So what are some ways that you can actually manage this expectation, or even take note of what expectations that needs to be managed? I think that's the more important part. We all know we need to manage expectation, but what exactly?
Yeah. For me, it's mainly the open conversation, right? Do we even have opportunities to discuss about how we work together? right? Most of the time when we have one-on-one reviews, it's always about the task, the work at hand. Okay, who's doing it, who's not doing it? This department is not giving to me, so this is how I navigate around it. But sit down one-on-one with your manager or with your teammate to see, hey, actually, how are we going to work together? One, what is the role expectation? If I'm a manager, you're a senior exec, this is your compartment, this is your department. What is the expectations of the role, right? And also, and how do we communicate, right? When do we look at creating that high level alert? When do we give feedback, so that feedback culture also comes in play? So I feel there's first and foremost that openness, that trust, that safe space to be able to have these conversations.
I actually want to tweak a bit the question for you, since you actually have working adults. As your
yes,
kids.
yes.
So I wanna, from a parent's point of view, let's not take it from a corporate point. How would you advise your kids to manage because what the advice we give to our staff employees is different from the advice we give to our kids. So what do you say to your kids?
True. One of the things that I was telling my daughter is, a lot of times we always think when we say manage expectations, always managing upwards, false expectation. I said, no, you also need to be able to manage horizontally. And if you cannot manage upwards, you go this way. And one of the things that I always tell my girl is, having a culture of feedback becomes so important. Number one. Number two, I always tell her that you need to be able to. She's a bit hot-tempered, my girl. Very different from me. I gotta put that qualifying in. Very different from me. Hot-tempered in the sense that I think she comes from a generation where everything is fast. So they want to see things fast. They want to see results fast. They want fast response. But the bosses that you report to don't operate at the same, because one's a generation X and then she's coming from a generation Y.
Yeah.
And my younger one comes from a generation Z. And I told her that sometimes I said, you need to be able to pause, take a step back, reflect, and start to pace yourself, because I said, you have a lot of things that you want to drive. You have a lot of things that you want to achieve, a lot of goals that you have set for yourself.
Yeah.
And I told her that, as you achieve this, you also need to make sure that you're moving at a pace where the organization is also ready for that. And I said, there's nothing wrong with taking a slightly slower pace, because one of the things about being gung-ho is sometimes we dive into things without considering everything else. And she has a habit of doing that. It's always, let's do this. And I was like, wait, have you considered? No, it's okay, let's do it. She's like, that's agility, isn't it? And I'm like, taking my word out of context now. It's not I said agility, just got things done. I said, yes. Yeah. But you also need to be able to make sure that the other considerations have also been, taken into place. But I'm not saying analysis paralysis where you wait for the perfect moment or the perfect time and then you start moving. But you need to be able to have that balance, And I find that I'm trying to get my daughter to start to see that the balance needs to come in, because she moves at a very fast pace. She comes back and it's like, let's go moving. It's very stressful going with her on holidays. She's like 6 o'clock, let's get moving. She said, we need to go and see here, 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 and here. I remember we went to Ipoh for a half-day session. We managed to see everything in Ipoh. We went to Concubine Lane, we went to Mirror Lake, and it was because she had planned everything. And to her, it was the goal. See as many things as you can get done, and let's do it. We came back, we were tired, and I'm not even sure what we saw, but we went back to Ipoh again. I told her this time, at my pace, I said, at my pace. And I think sometimes the challenge is when you start moving at that pace, you know what, you lose out. And I tell my daughter this, you stop enjoying the process.
Yeah.
You stop enjoying the journey. And I said, basically, that's the part that's important. The process you go through, the journey you go through. That's where the learning takes place, and that's where you enjoy it. You can't wait until you get the results and satisfaction comes in, because frustration, the process may outweigh your results, and that's going to be a challenge because your frustration actually kicked in.
Yeah. But I must say, it's that stage of their life, right? Where they want it fast, they want it immediately, and if they don't have it, they feel that they are left out, right? They are left behind. So one example is my son, because he went for King Scout World Jamboree, he had to defer his A-levels for a good few months, right? So all his friends are already in year one of their uni, whereas he's still waiting to go into a program, right? So he came up to me and said, I feel a little bit left out, because the pace is different. And, he has all these expectations. He wants to make his first million by 30. He wants to drive a BMW, and, he's asking me when am I going to retire and things like that. But I think that's where youth, sometimes the saying goes, right? Youth is wasted on the young. So we get to say, okay, the journey is important, etc.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, the journey is there, but if I don't get what I want, what's the point?
So I always like that in hindsight. We all like to use the term hindsight, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
True.
But yeah, just now you mentioned one thing that this kind of interference, the word you term interference, is actually internal, right? And I think what we're trying to understand is how can we first identify this interference, and what can we do in terms of, let's say, daily habits that we can implement to remove this interference from our lives to actually increase our performance at the end of the day.
It's a lot of, I would say, self-awareness.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with self-awareness.
And I think there was a survey done by this HR board that showed one of the most difficult skill for leaders to develop is actually self-awareness. So, whether you have, like what Cheryl said, the intent, what's the intent behind it? Am I aware, right? What am I doing is actually blocking my potential, right? So say, for instance, in the case of, our young children, they want things fast, etc. What are they doing about it, right? So do they have like habits to wake up early to, catch the early bird catches the worm first, right? So, or are they sleeping in? Then when they get up, they rush through things, and that's where they feel the adrenaline rush and they go all over the place. So being really self-aware, what is the goal in mind that they have, and where are some key habits that they need to adjust to be able to maximize their potential at that point in time, right? So, so that's how I see it. Maybe not all habits, but what is one or two key habits that could move the needle? Yeah, so say for instance for weight loss, if I may use an example, right? It's a forever struggle of mine and it's like a lifelong resolution, right? What are some of the, you can follow all the diet plans, you can follow all the exercise regimes, etc. But what is that key habit that could tweak or move the needle for you? So for me, I discovered that it's my sugar craving, right? So I realized that if I don't have sugar before 1 p.m. or before afternoon, I'm fine the whole day, right? But if I have something sweet in the morning, that's it. I'll be craving for sugar the whole day. So realizing this, I put in as a habit that I don't take sugar before 1 or 2 p.m. versus a popular diet regime, right? Cut down sugar. So you got to identify what is that one area that could move the needle for you, that would make a difference for you. Yeah.
I think I very resonate with your daughter. I am someone who's also do. It's okay, mistake. That's the way. So I'm a very strong kind of person. What if someone like this comes up to you, and let's say your daughter comes up to you and say, how can I be better in my workplace? If I want to get my promotion, my better salary, what would you advise them? What can they do?
Yeah, one of the things, I was recently doing a training program and I was using the broken escalator when we talked about choices. And I forwarded it to her and I told her, watch this video. And then she looked, and then she texted me, but I don't understand. She said, why you asked me to watch this video? It took a long time because she's fast. They're all with reels. She said, I don't understand what you asked me to watch this video for. And I told her, girl, you're on the escalator. I said, it's broken. You're stuck on it. I said, you need to start to get off it. I said, use the escalator as a metaphor for life. And I said, part of getting off it is just looking at what is out there, potential and opportunities. Stop waiting for things around you to happen, to change. Stop waiting for the environment to be perfect, because she's a perfectionist. And I told her, stop having, she has high expectations as well. goodness, I'm like, she sets really high expectations. And I told her, I said, sometimes you need to, your expectations are really quite high. I said, you need to take it in bite sizes. It's good to have high expectations because I feel, they always say, right, aim for the stars and then you hit the moon or something like that. I can't really recall, but I told her it's good to have high expectations. But I said, you need to start to look at it in bite sizes. And when you look at it in bite sizes, I told her, then the small daily practices help you to go through that, to go through the shift. So, one of the things I told her is, I told her, you just need to be a bit patient. I said, look at what, it's good that you have the plans. And she's now making a shift in her job. She's not moving out, but she's within the same organization, going to a different department, and it's a bit scary. I told her, again, her perfectionist comes in. What if I shift departments? Then I stop performing. My performance is going to drop. What if they don't like what I'm doing? She has got all this interference before she even starts or gives it an opportunity. She has all these questions in her mind.
Yes.
What if, what if, what if, what if? And I told her, I said, girl, you cannot continue to live life with what if. You just need to do it. And I said, as it comes your way, I said, trust, and I know you have it, trust that you have the courage and you have the ability to manage it. I said, but you need to start to take that step forward. So she's been stuck on that escalator for about 6 months trying to decide, should I shift, should I not? And she's been having all these questions. And I told her, girl, I said, I didn't buy you a Nike shoe for nothing. Just do it. She was, yeah. And she's, sometimes at that age, sometimes they always tell me, Mom, your jokes are so lame. I don't get it. I thought it was fun. She just looked at me and says, oh my goodness. She called the brother and said, Mom is gone back again with her jokes, which she thinks is funny, but it's not. Because I thought you have a Nike shoe for nothing, just do it. And she rolled her eyes and she says, okay, fine, I get it. But, you don't need to make any more jokes.
I get it, right?
Just like do it.
I thought it was fun, So that's I find the support becomes so important. And I think in corporate, that's one of the things that is important for managers to also be able to do. Use performance appraisal not as a time to measure performance, what you've done, what you've not done, what else you need to do. These are the gaps. But I feel it's also to be able to identify, what is their interest, what is their passion, what is their potential, and how do we support them. And I feel that's when you'll be able to harness and leverage on this group of young people, because I do see so much of potential in them. Like you say, these are the things that we want. The drive, gung ho, let's go into it. No safety net, just jump, let's go into it, And I think if we're able to harness it, we'll be able to really bring out the best in them, which is very different from my son. My son he graduated. He's like, okay, what job can I do that earns the most money but don't have to do a lot of work? I was like, oh my goodness, I've got something else on my hands now. I'm not sure I'm going to start.
He's not there yet. It's that phase that we all go through. That reality hits, and then we step on that.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So thank you so much for sharing, especially the advice that you guys give. If you guys like this video and this brought any value, or of someone who actually needs to hear this, share to them, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys in the next video.